The memo sat on my desk like a death sentence. 20 years of 12-hour days, missed birthdays, sacrificed weekends, all reduced to 2 sentences. Effective immediately, Elodie Marchetti will transition to administrative support. Please clear your office by end of business today. My hands trembled as I read it again, certain there'd been a mistake. Administrative support, filing paperwork me. The woman who'd built the entire foundation of Chromatech's most profitable division was being told to organize someone else's calendar. It's just a restructuring, Elodie. Harrison Blackwood didn't even have the decency to look uncomfortable as he delivered the news himself. The new chairman of the board, fresh from his Silicon Valley success story, stood in my office doorway with his $1,000 suit and practiced sympathy. We're bringing in fresh perspectives, younger energy for the leadership team. Younger energy. I let the words hang there. The research division I built generates 42% of this company's revenue. Generated, he corrected, and something cold flickered in his eyes. Past tense. Technology moves forward, Elodie. Perhaps it's time you did too. Mind your place in this new structure, and this transition will be painless. Mind your place. 20 years, and I was being told to mind my place. Stories like mine happen every day in corporate America. Loyalty means nothing when new management decides you're expendable. But what they didn't know, what Harrison Blackwood couldn't possibly know, was that some people remember where they came from. Some people keep records, and some people hold patents that could make or break a company's future. Welcome to the Payback Office channel, where we share stories of workplace injustice and the satisfaction that comes when the underestimated finally get their due. If these stories resonate with you, we'd appreciate you joining our community as we work toward 8,000 subscribers. Every subscription tells us these stories matter, that your experiences matter. Now, about me. My name is Elodie Marchetti, and until yesterday, I was the Director of Advanced Research at Chromatech Industries. My parents immigrated from Italy with nothing but determination and a belief that hard work meant something in America. They taught me to remember where I came from, to treat people with dignity regardless of their position, to understand that empathy isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I should have seen it coming. The signs had been there for months. Ever since Blackwood's investment firm acquired controlling interest in Chromatech, the old guard had been systematically pushed out. Frederick Holloway, our founder and original CEO, had been forced into early retirement at 63. Margaret Chen from operations was offered a consultant position code for being shown the door. Thomas Brighton in legal took a sudden sabbatical that everyone knew was permanent. But I'd thought I was different. I'd thought the patent portfolio I'd built, the innovations I'd shepherded from concept to market, would insulate me from the purge. I'd actually believed that merit mattered. How naive. I'd spent that first night in my apartment, the one I'd barely seen in daylight for 2 decades, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every meeting, every moment I'd missed with friends and family because Chromatech came first. Always first. The anger came in waves, not the hot, explosive kind, but something colder, more calculating. Because here's what Harrison Blackwood didn't know, I wasn't just Chromatech's Director of Advanced Research. I was the name on 17 patents that formed the backbone of our most promising technology. Patents filed under my name alone, before Chromatech had even existed in its current form, when we were still a scrappy startup, and Frederick Holloway promised that individual contributions would be recognized. Those patents had been licensed to Chromatech, licensed, not transferred. And the most important one, the one that made everything else possible, was coming up for renewal. The morning after my demotion, I reported to my new desk. Not an office, a desk, in an open floor plan with flickering fluorescent lights and the constant hum of the HVAC system. They'd positioned me near the break room, where I could hear every conversation, every casual cruelty. Did you see Marchetti out there? God, how humiliating. I heard she refused to train her replacement. Bitter much. Blackwood says she was resistant to innovation, holding the company back. I kept my head down and organized files, alphabetized reports, scheduled conference rooms, and I waited. Because 3 days after my demotion, Chromatech was announcing something big. Harrison Blackwood had been dropping hints in board meetings, making calls to investors, setting up press conferences. A major breakthrough, he claimed. A revolutionary advancement that would position Chromatech as the leader in neural interface technology. The technology I'd invented. The morning of the announcement, I arrived early. My new workstation gave me a perfect view of the executive elevator, where Harrison Blackwood emerged at 7:30 sharp, flanked by his hand-picked leadership team. Wesley Donovan, the new chief technology officer, 32 years old with an MBA and exactly 0 patents to his name. Simone Prescott, VP of Innovation, her innovation being knowing which startups to acquire and gut for parts. They didn't even glance in my direction as they passed. The press conference was scheduled for 9 a.m. I pulled it up on my computer, one of 3 monitors they'd generously provided for my administrative duties. The Chromatech logo gleamed against a backdrop of sleek, modern graphics. Harrison Blackwood took the podium, confident and polished. Today marks a new era for Chromatech Industries, he began. Under new leadership, we've streamlined our operations, eliminated redundancies, and focused our efforts on breakthrough innovation. Eliminated redundancies, that's what I was now. I'm thrilled to announce that Chromatech has secured Series C funding in the amount of $240 million, led by Titanium Ventures and Apex Capital Partners. This funding will accelerate development of our proprietary neural interface platform, NeuralSync, positioning Chromatech at the forefront of human-computer interaction technology. The camera flashed to slides showing the technology, my technology. Diagrams I'd drawn. Prototypes I'd built in the lab at 2 a.m. when everyone else had gone home. Years of my life reduced to bullet points in a venture capitalist pitch deck. NeuralSync represents a quantum leap forward, Blackwood continued. Unlike existing neural interface technologies that require invasive procedures, our platform utilizes non-invasive biometric sensors combined with advanced signal processing algorithms. The applications are limitless: medical rehabilitation, enhanced communication for individuals with disabilities, next-generation gaming, and entertainment experiences. He wasn't wrong. The applications were limitless. That's why I'd spent 15 years developing it. This funding round values Chromatech at $1.2 billion, Blackwood announced, and the room erupted in applause. We're grateful to our investors for recognizing the vision and potential of this technology. Chromatech is no longer just a research company, we're a market leader, poised for exponential growth. My phone buzzed. A text from my former assistant, James, who'd been reassigned to Wesley Donovan. "I'm so sorry, Elodie. This isn't right." I typed back, "Don't worry, it'll work out." Because it would, just not the way Harrison Blackwood imagined. The press conference ended with champagne and congratulations. I watched executives I'd worked with for decades celebrate my work while I sat at a desk filing expense reports. Margaret from accounting brought me a stack of receipts that needed to be organized. "When you get a chance," she said, not unkindly. Everyone was being careful around me, like I was a wounded animal that might lash out. I smiled and took the receipts. Of course, happy to help. At 11 a.m., my personal phone rang. Not my Chromatech number, my personal cell, the one only a select few people had. "Miss Marchetti, this is Diane Rothschild from Rothschild & Associates. I represent Titanium Ventures. We need to speak with you urgently regarding the Chromatech investment." "I'm not sure what I could help you with," I said carefully. "I'm no longer in a decision-making role at Chromatech." "Yes, we're aware of your recent transition. Miss Marchetti, our due diligence team has uncovered some concerning information regarding the NeuralSync patent portfolio. Specifically, we've discovered that the foundational patent, U.S. Patent 10,847,392, filed in 2008, is not owned by Chromatech Industries." I let the silence stretch. "Miss Marchetti, are you there?" "I'm here." According to USPTO records, that patent is registered under your name individually. Our understanding from Chromatech's disclosures was that all relevant intellectual property was company-owned. Your understanding was incorrect, I said. Chromatech holds an exclusive licensing agreement for that patent. The agreement terms specify annual renewal subject to certain conditions. Another pause. When Diane Rothschild spoke again, her voice was tight. And the status of that renewal? The current license expires in 14 days. I received a renewal offer from Chromatech last month, but given recent changes in my role and responsibilities, I'm still evaluating whether renewal serves my best interests. Miss Marchetti, I'm sure you understand that this is a complex decision. After 20 years with Chromatech, I want to ensure any agreement reflects the true value of my contributions. I'm certain your firm did thorough due diligence before committing $240 million. I could practically hear her blood pressure rising. We were assured, Chromatech's disclosures clearly stated. I'm sure they did. If you'll excuse me, I have files to organize. You have my number if you need to discuss this further. I disconnected and went back to alphabetizing expense reports. The beautiful thing about being demoted to administrative support was that nobody paid attention to me anymore. I was furniture. Background noise. The woman at the desk by the break room who processed their paperwork and scheduled their meetings. Which meant I heard everything. By lunchtime, the executive floor was in chaos. I knew because every senior leader in the building suddenly needed files from storage, requisitions processed, conference rooms booked, tasks that brought them into my area, where they huddled in tight groups, voices low and urgent. Wesley Donovan passed by 3 times in an hour, each time on his phone, his face progressively paler. Simone Prescott emerged from Harrison Blackwood's office looking like she might be sick. The celebratory energy from the morning's press conference had evaporated, replaced by barely controlled panic. At 2 p.m., Harrison Blackwood himself appeared at my desk. He'd removed his suit jacket, and his shirt collar was unbuttoned. The polished confidence from the press conference was gone, replaced by something harder, angrier. Elodie, my office now. Everyone in the open workspace went silent. I saved my spreadsheet, stood, and followed him to the elevator. The ride to the executive floor felt like traveling to a different universe, one I'd inhabited until 3 days ago, before I'd been cast out. His office was a monument to ego. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city modern art that probably cost more than my annual salary, furniture so aggressively designer it was almost hostile. He gestured to a chair, but I remained standing. What the hell are you playing at? He demanded. I'm not sure what you mean. I've been filing paperwork exactly as instructed. Was something processed incorrectly? His jaw clenched. The patent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Diane Rothschild from Titanium Ventures called me personally. She's threatening to pull the entire funding round. That seems dramatic. Dramatic? His voice rose. You're holding a $240 million investment hostage. The patent disclosures clearly indicated that Chromatech owned all relevant IP for NeuralSync. Chromatech licenses the foundational patent, I corrected. An important distinction. Surely your legal team explained the difference during due diligence. The license has been automatically renewed for 15 years. 14 years. And yes, I've renewed annually because Chromatech met the terms of our agreement. Appropriate compensation, recognition of contribution, and meaningful participation in the development of the technology. You were compensated, generously. I smiled. I was, past tense, but 3 days ago my role changed significantly. I'm no longer developing technology or leading research. I'm filing paperwork, which makes me question whether the current licensing arrangement still makes sense. Harrison Blackwood moved around his desk, stepping closer. It was meant to be intimidating. Maybe it would have worked on the woman I'd been 3 days ago, the one who still believed loyalty mattered, who thought her work spoke for itself. You're upset about the restructuring, he said, shifting tactics. I understand. Change is difficult, especially after so many years in one role, but this is bigger than hurt feelings, Elodie. This funding will allow us to bring NeuralSync to market, to help people. You've always said this technology could change lives. Don't let ego destroy that. Ego, I repeated. You demoted me to administrative support after 20 years, told me to mind my place, and I'm the one with an ego problem. You were resistant to change. Your methods were outdated, your team wasn't meeting benchmarks. My team generated 42% of company revenue. My outdated methods produced 17 patents. And NeuralSync, the technology you just valued at over $1 billion, came from my resistant to change leadership. Under Chromatech's resources, using company equipment, company funding. The foundational concept was developed before Chromatech existed in its current form, I interrupted. When we were still operating out of Frederick Holloway's garage, before your investment firm even knew we existed. I filed that patent with my own money, on my own time. Frederick and I had an agreement that individual innovations would be recognized. That agreement was honored for 14 years, until you decided it wasn't convenient anymore. What do you want? The question came out like a growl. More money? A different title? You want your old job back, fine. We can call it a miscommunication, restructure again. I don't want my old job back. That stopped him. Then what? I want what I've always wanted. Recognition, respect, fair compensation for my contributions, and I want to work with people who value loyalty and integrity over quarterly earnings projections. Name your price, Elodie. The license renewal, what's it going to take? I walked to the window, looked out at the city sprawling below. 20 years. I'd given this company 20 years. I'd believed in what we were building, believed we were different from the soulless corporations that treated people like interchangeable parts. I'd been wrong. I'll have my attorney send over the updated licensing terms, I said. You have 14 days to review them. After that, the license expires and the patent rights revert exclusively to me, which means NeuralSync as currently designed cannot be developed, manufactured, or distributed by Chromatech Industries. You can't do this. We have contracts agreements. A licensing agreement that expires in 14 days, yes. I'm simply choosing not to renew under the current terms. Perfectly legal. I'm certain your legal team will confirm that once they finish explaining to your investors how they missed this during due diligence. I headed for the door. This is extortion, Harrison Blackwood said. I turned back. Number extortion would be threatening to license the patent to one of your competitors, which I haven't done. Yet, I'm simply renegotiating a business agreement from a position you now realize is stronger than you assumed. Isn't that what you did when you acquired Chromatech? Identified leverage, exploited weakness, maximized value. I could make this very difficult for you, Elodie. Litigation, injunctions. You could try, but litigation takes time. Your investors want to know right now whether their $240 million is funding actual proprietary technology or just expensive licensing fees for someone else's patent. Every day you don't have a clear answer, your company valuation drops. Your reputation with Titanium Ventures and Apex Capital Partners suffers. Other investors start asking questions. I open the door. And Mr. Blackwood, I've been minding my place for 3 days now. Filing paperwork, organizing receipts, scheduling conference rooms. I'm very good at following instructions. So if you'd like me to continue in my current role while we negotiate this licensing agreement, I'm happy to do so. But I won't be rushed, and I won't be intimidated. I took the elevator back down to my desk by the break room, sat down, and returned to my expense reports. My hands weren't shaking anymore. Within an hour, I had 3 voicemails from Chromatech's legal department, 2 emails from external counsel, and a calendar invitation for an urgent discussion scheduled for the following morning. I declined the meeting and sent a brief email. All communication regarding patent licensing should be directed to my attorney, Philip Westwood at Westwood & Partners. Contact information attached. Philip was a college friend who'd gone into intellectual property law. We'd kept in touch over the years, met for coffee occasionally, complained about our respective corporate headaches. I'd called him the night of my demotion, just to talk through the situation, and he'd immediately identified the leverage I had. Elodie, do you understand what you're sitting on? He'd said. That patent is the foundation of everything Chromatech is building. Without it, NeuralSync is just vaporware. With new investors coming in, this is the perfect time to renegotiate. I'd been hesitant. It felt vindictive, petty even. They demoted you to administrative support after 20 years of building their company, Philip had reminded me. They publicly announced a breakthrough based on your work while you're filing paperwork in a cubicle. That's not just disrespectful, it's a fundamental undervaluation of your contribution. You have every right to ensure you're fairly compensated. So I'd retained him. And now Harrison Blackwood was learning that the woman he dismissed so casually wasn't going quietly. The next morning, I arrived at my desk to find a formal offer letter waiting in my email. Director of Innovation, reporting directly to the CEO, with full oversight of the NeuralSync development program and a compensation package including equity and performance bonuses. I deleted it. 20 minutes later, Wesley Donovan appeared at my desk. The man who'd replaced me, who'd been paraded around as the new generation of Chromatech leadership. Elodie, can we talk? Of course, what can I help you with? He glanced around the open workspace, where a dozen people were pretending not to listen. Maybe somewhere more private. I stood and led him to a small conference room. He closed the door and ran a hand through his hair. This whole situation is messed up, he said. I want you to know, I didn't know about your demotion until after it happened. I was brought in to lead the commercialization phase, not to replace you. Harrison Blackwood made the decisions he felt were best for Chromatech's future. He made a mistake. The team is falling apart without you. Half the researchers are updating their resumes. James told me yesterday he's taking interviews. James, my former assistant, the one who'd helped me build the NeuralSync prototypes, who understood the technology almost as well as I did. Of course he was leaving. People make their own choices about where to work, I said neutrally. Elodie, I've looked at the patent documentation. I've reviewed the licensing agreement. You have us over a barrel and everyone knows it. Just tell me, what's it going to take to fix this? I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do, the licensing renewal. Blackwood won't say what your terms are, but legal is freaking out. The investors are threatening to walk. If we don't have clear rights to the foundational patent, the entire funding round collapses. The company could go under. I met his eyes. Then I suppose Chromatech should have been more careful about how it treated the person who held those patent rights. Wesley Donovan left the conference room looking even worse than when we'd entered. I returned to my desk and spent the rest of the morning processing supply orders and organizing the archive system for the accounting department. The thing about administrative work was that it gave me plenty of time to think. Time to watch. Time to understand exactly how much chaos one unsigned licensing agreement could create. By noon, the exodus had begun. James stopped by my desk with a box of his personal items. I gave my notice this morning. 2 weeks. I'm sorry, Elodie, but I can't work for people who treat loyalty like garbage. Where are you going? Quantum Dynamics. They're developing similar neural interface technology. They've actually been trying to recruit me for 6 months, but I kept saying no because of you, because I believed in what we were building. He shook his head. I was an idiot. You weren't, you believed in the mission. That's not idiotic. The mission just secured $240 million in funding while you're out here filing expense reports. That's not a mission I can support anymore. After he left, I opened my laptop and did something I'd been considering for weeks. I sent an email to Dr. Ramona Castellano, Chief Technology Officer at Quantum Dynamics. Ramona and I had met years ago at a conference, had stayed in touch through the occasional email exchange about research developments. 6 months ago, she'd reached out about a potential collaboration between our companies. Harrison Blackwood had rejected it immediately. Chromatech didn't need partners, he'd said. We were the leaders, not followers. My email was brief. Ramona, I hope this finds you well. My situation at Chromatech has changed recently, and I wanted to reconnect about the collaboration opportunity we discussed last year. Would you have time for a call this week? She responded within 20 minutes. Elodie, I heard rumors about restructuring at Chromatech. I'm so sorry. Yes, absolutely, let's talk. Are you free tomorrow afternoon? I confirmed the meeting and returned to alphabetizing vendor contracts. At 3 p.m., Philip Westwood called. Elodie, we need to discuss Chromatech's response to our licensing terms. What did they say? They rejected everything. Flatly. Blackwood's position is that the current agreement is valid and your demands constitute breach of good faith negotiation. He's threatening litigation if you don't renew under existing terms. Can he do that? He can try. It'll be expensive and time-consuming, and he'll lose. The licensing agreement is clear. Annual renewal is at your discretion, subject to mutually agreed terms. You're under no obligation to renew at all, much less under terms you find unacceptable. So what happens now? Now we wait. He's bluffing. The funding round closes in 10 days. If there's any uncertainty about Chromatech's IP rights, Titanium Ventures will walk. They're not going to invest $240 million in technology the company doesn't fully control. Blackwood knows that. He's hoping you'll fold. I won't. I know, which is why I've started drafting alternative licensing agreements. With your permission, I'd like to reach out to some other companies that might be interested in the NeuralSync patent portfolio. You want to auction it off. I want to ensure you have options. Right now, Blackwood thinks you need Chromatech as much as they need you. Let's show him that's not true. I thought about it. About 20 years of dedication, of believing in Chromatech's mission, of sacrificing everything else for the company. About Harrison Blackwood telling me to mind my place. Do it, I said. That evening, I stayed late at the office. Not because I had work to do, I'd finished my assigned tasks by 2 p.m., but because I wanted to see something. At 6:30, the executive floor emptied out, and I took the elevator up. My old office was dark. Through the glass walls, I could see they'd already started removing my things. The awards and recognition plaques I'd accumulated over 20 years were gone. The photographs of my team celebrating successful product launches, deleted. They were erasing me like I'd never existed. I pulled out my phone and took a picture. Not for sentiment, for evidence. Documentation of how quickly a company could discard someone once they were no longer deemed useful. Miss Marchetti. I turned to find Simone Prescott, the VP of Innovation, standing in the hallway. She looked exhausted, her usual polished appearance slightly frayed. Just collecting some final items, I lied. There's nothing left, we cleared it out yesterday. I see that. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. This situation with the patent, it doesn't have to be adversarial. Chromatech made you who you are. Frederick Holloway gave you your first opportunity, funded your research, provided the resources to develop NeuralSync. Without this company, that patent would be worthless. Is that what Harrison Blackwood told you to say? It's the truth. You're upset, and I get it. But burning down everything you've built out of spite isn't going to make you feel better. You think this is spite. What else would you call it? You're holding the company hostage because you got reassigned. It's petty, Elodie, and it's beneath you. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. 3 days ago, I was the director of advanced research. I had a team of 40 people, a budget of $18 million, and oversight of every major innovation project at this company. Today, I'm filing expense reports in a cubicle by the break room. And you're calling me petty for questioning whether I should continue licensing my most valuable patent to a company that treated 20 years of loyalty like it was disposable. It was a business decision. Exactly, a business decision, so this is my business decision. Chromatech chose to restructure my role. I'm choosing to restructure our licensing agreement. Nothing personal, just business. I walked past her to the elevator. She didn't follow. The next morning, my call with Ramona Castellano confirmed what I'd started to suspect. I had options. Elodie, I'm going to be direct with you, Ramona said. Quantum Dynamics has been trying to develop non-invasive neural interface technology for 3 years. We've made progress, but nothing close to what you've achieved with NeuralSync. If you're willing to license that patent to us, or better yet, bring your expertise here as our Chief Innovation Officer, I can have an offer letter to you by end of week. I haven't left Chromatech. But you're considering it. I'm considering a lot of things right now. Consider this: quantum dynamics values innovation and the people who create it. We don't demote our top researchers to administrative support. We don't take credit for other people's work. And we compensate our leaders with equity stakes that reflect their true contribution to company value. You've been talking to James. She laughed. He started Monday, already making waves on our neural mapping project. He speaks very highly of you. After the call, I sat at my desk thinking. Not about revenge, that was too simple, too emotional. About value. About what I was worth, what my work was worth, and what it meant to spend 20 years building something only to have it taken away by someone who'd never created anything in his life. At 10 a.m., Harrison Blackwood called an all-hands meeting. Everyone in the company was required to attend. I filed into the auditorium with 200 other employees, finding a seat in the back row. Blackwood took the stage, his confidence restored. He'd put his armor back on: expensive suit, perfect hair, practiced smile. I know there's been some uncertainty this week regarding our recent funding announcement, he began. I want to address those concerns directly. Chromatech Industries has a robust intellectual property portfolio that forms the foundation of all our products and technologies. Any suggestions that we don't have clear rights to our innovations are categorically false. He was lying, smoothly, confidently, but lying. Our legal team has reviewed all patents, licensing agreements, and IP documentation. We are fully compliant and fully protected. The Series C funding round is proceeding as planned, with closing scheduled for next week. Chromatech's future has never been brighter. Applause. People believed him because they wanted to believe him, because uncertainty was terrifying and Harrison Blackwood was selling certainty. I also want to address another rumor that's been circulating. There have been some personnel changes recently as we've restructured for growth. These changes were necessary and strategic. Every person in this organization has value regardless of their role. We're all part of the Chromatech family, and we all contribute to our collective success. His eyes found mine in the back row. Some people resist change. They cling to old ways of doing things, old hierarchies, old assumptions about how value is created. But Chromatech is moving forward. We're building the future. And everyone who wants to be part of that future has a place here, as long as they're willing to embrace new possibilities rather than dwelling on past grievances. He was talking to me, or rather, talking about me to everyone else, painting me as the problem, the resistant dinosaur who couldn't adapt, who was creating obstacles out of wounded pride. The meeting ended with more applause and a catered lunch in the courtyard. I skipped it and returned to my desk, where I found an email from Philip Westwood. Elodie, significant development. I've been contacted by 3 separate companies expressing interest in licensing the NeuralSync patent. 2 are direct competitors to Chromatech. The third is a medical device manufacturer that wants to develop therapeutic applications. All 3 are willing to pay substantially more than Chromatech's current licensing fee. Call me when you can. I called immediately. How much more? I asked. Between 3 and 5 times the current annual fee, plus royalties on any products developed using the technology. And one of them, NeuroVista Systems, is interested in acquiring the patent outright. They're offering $8 million. $8 million. For a patent I'd filed 13 years ago for $3,000 in attorney's fees. What happens to Chromatech if I license to a competitor? Their entire NeuralSync program becomes worthless. They'd have to halt development, scrap years of research, and explain to their new investors why the $240 million valuation was based on technology they no longer have exclusive rights to use. The company could fold. Possibly, probably. Without NeuralSync, Chromatech doesn't have much to differentiate itself. They've put all their eggs in that basket. I thought about Frederick Holloway, who'd given me my first opportunity. About James and the other researchers who were leaving because they couldn't work for Harrison Blackwood. About the administrative assistants and accountants and facilities staff who'd lose their jobs if Chromatech went under. I don't want to destroy the company, I said. I want them to understand that people aren't disposable. That loyalty and contribution matter. Then make them an offer they can't refuse, but one that ensures you're properly valued. What would that look like for you? I spent that night drafting terms, not with anger or vindictiveness, but with clarity. 20 years of contribution deserved recognition, not as a favor, not as charity, as a matter of basic fairness. By morning, I had my proposal. Philip reviewed it and whistled low. This is bold, Elodie. They're going to fight it. Let them fight. They have 7 days until the funding round closes. Every day they spend fighting is another day their investors get nervous. He sent the proposal to Chromatech's legal department at 9 a.m. By 9:30, my desk phone was ringing. Harrison Blackwood, bypassing all the attorneys and intermediaries. This is insane, he said without preamble. 20% equity stake, board seat with veto rights over IP decisions, restoration to a newly created C-suite position as Chief Innovation Officer. You're out of your mind. Those are my terms for renewing the licensing agreement and continuing to develop NeuralSync technology in partnership with Chromatech. If they're unacceptable, I have 3 other companies willing to license the patent, and one offering to buy it outright. You'd sell to a competitor, you destroy everything you've built here. I built NeuralSync, I own the foundational patent. Chromatech was a partner in developing that technology, but they don't own it. You keep forgetting that. We made you. No, I interrupted. Frederick Holloway believed in my vision and provided resources to pursue it. That's not the same thing as making me. I brought the ideas, the expertise, the years of research. Chromatech provided funding and infrastructure. That's a partnership, not ownership. This is extortion. This is negotiation. If my terms are unreasonable, don't accept them. License from NeuroVista Systems instead. See how that works out for your funding round. I hung up. The thing about power was that you had to be willing to use it. For 20 years, I'd been grateful. Grateful for the opportunity, grateful for the job, grateful to be included in meetings and decisions. That gratitude had made me compliant, easy to manage, easy to discard when convenient. I wasn't grateful anymore. At lunch, I met with Ramona Castellano in person. She'd flown in specifically to talk to me, which told me exactly how valuable quantum dynamics thought I was. I'll be direct, she said over coffee at a cafe 3 blocks from Chromatech's offices. We want you, your expertise, your patents, your vision for where neural interface technology can go. I'm authorized to offer you Chief Innovation Officer position, 15% equity stake, and a compensation package that I think will surprise you pleasantly. She slid a folder across the table. I opened it and tried not to react to the numbers. Base salary nearly triple what I'd made at Chromatech. Stock options that could be worth millions if quantum dynamics succeeded. Full research budget authority. This is contingent on bringing the NeuralSync patent with you, Ramona said. Either through licensing to quantum dynamics or terminating your Chromatech agreement and developing the technology exclusively with us. You're asking me to abandon 20 years of work. I'm asking you to continue 20 years of work with people who will value it appropriately. Elodie, you know what happened at Chromatech isn't right. You know you deserve better. The question is whether you're willing to actually take better when it's offered. She left the folder with me. No pressure. Well, some pressure. We'd like an answer by Friday. But think about it. Think about what you want the next 20 years of your career to look like. I returned to Chromatech carrying the folder, hyper-aware of what it represented. An escape route. A completely different future. The chance to walk away from Harrison Blackwood and everyone who'd enabled my demotion. But also, abandoning Frederick Holloway's legacy. Leaving behind the researchers who'd become friends. Destroying a company that, for all its flaws under new leadership, still employed 200 people who'd done nothing wrong. At 3 p.m., Philip called. Chromatech's legal team wants to schedule a mediation session. They're proposing tomorrow morning, neutral location, you and Blackwood with attorneys present. They're taking your terms seriously. Or they're stalling. Possibly, but they only have 6 days until funding closes. They can't stall much longer. My read is that Blackwood is finally understanding he doesn't have leverage here. The question is whether his ego will let him admit it. The mediation session was held at a conference center downtown, in a soulless room with a long table and terrible coffee. Harrison Blackwood arrived with 3 attorneys. I brought only Philip, which I could tell bothered them. They'd prepared for a legal battle. I'd prepared to state facts. "Let's establish some ground rules," the lead attorney said. "This is a good faith negotiation to find mutually acceptable terms for license renewal. Both parties agree that the relationship between Miss Marchetti and Chromatech has been valuable, and that continuing that relationship serves everyone's interests." "Does it," I asked, "serve everyone's interests?" Harrison Blackwood leaned forward. "Elodie, I'm not going to apologize for making hard business decisions. Restructuring your role was about positioning Chromatech for the future. But I can acknowledge that the execution could have been better. More communication, more appreciation for your contributions. I'm willing to correct that. By offering me my old job back. By offering you a better position. Chief Innovation Officer is a significant upgrade from Director of Advanced Research. C-suite compensation, equity stake, real authority over the technology roadmap. It's what you've earned. And the board seat." He hesitated. "That's complicated. Our investors have specific expectations about board composition. Adding board members affects voting dynamics, control structures. I don't want control. I want protection. I want assurance that Chromatech won't demote me to filing paperwork the next time a new chairman decides I'm not young enough or innovative enough. A board seat with veto rights over IP decisions ensures that the patents I create are protected, and that I have a voice in how they're used. That's an enormous amount of power to give one person. I created the technology that's the basis for your entire business model. I think I've earned an enormous amount of power." The attorneys exchanged glances. One of them slid a document across the table. "We've prepared a counteroffer. Chief Innovation Officer position, 12% equity stake vesting over 4 years, and a seat on the Innovation Advisory Committee with input on IP decisions." I didn't touch the document. Advisory Committee isn't a board seat. Input isn't veto authority. And 12% vesting over 4 years means Chromatech can fire me in year 2 and I lose most of the equity. No. "Miss Marchetti, you need to be realistic." I am being realistic. I'm sitting on a patent that 3 companies want a license and 1 wants to buy outright. Quantum Dynamics has offered me CIO position with 15% equity and full research authority. I'm here because I'd prefer to continue my work at Chromatech, but only if Chromatech demonstrates that it values that work appropriately. Your counteroffer doesn't do that. Harrison Blackwood's jaw tightened. What you're asking for would make you effectively untouchable. You could underperform, make bad decisions, drive the company into the ground, and we couldn't do anything about it because you'd have board-level protection. What I'm asking for is the same protection you have, the same security, the same recognition that my contribution to this company is foundational and irreplaceable. If that makes me effectively untouchable, maybe ask yourself why you're so concerned about touching me. The mediation session ended without agreement. Harrison Blackwood and his attorneys left first, their body language radiating frustration. Philip and I sat in the conference room for a few minutes afterward. "You're pushing him to the edge," Philip said. "He's going to have to choose between his ego and his funding round. That's a dangerous position. He put himself there when he demoted me." "True, but cornered animals bite. Be careful." That night, I received an email from Frederick Holloway, the founder and former CEO, the man who'd given me my first opportunity at Chromatech, who'd believed in NeuralSync when it was just a theory scribbled on a whiteboard. "Elodie, I heard about the situation with Harrison and the patent licensing. I wanted to reach out personally. What happened to you was wrong. The decision to restructure your role was made without my input or support. I'm no longer involved in operational decisions, as you know. But for what it's worth, I'm sorry. You deserved better from a company you helped build. If there's anything I can do to help resolve this situation, please let me know. You have my full support." I read the email 3 times. Frederick's support meant something. He was the reason I'd stayed at Chromatech through acquisitions and leadership changes, through long hours and missed opportunities elsewhere. His integrity had made me believe the company had integrity too. But Frederick didn't run Chromatech anymore. Harrison Blackwood did, and Harrison had made it very clear what he thought I was worth. I replied, "Frederick, thank you for reaching out. Your support has always meant everything to me. I hope we can find a resolution that honors the vision you had for Chromatech, a company that values innovation and the people who create it. Whatever happens, please know that I'm grateful for the opportunity you gave me 20 years ago." Friday arrived, my deadline from Quantum Dynamics. Chromatech's funding round closed in 4 days. At 9 a.m., Ramona Castellano called. "Elodie, I need an answer. We're prepared to move forward immediately if you're willing to join Quantum Dynamics. The board has approved the compensation package, we have lab space ready, and James has already started building out the team structure. All we need is you." "I need 24 more hours." "We don't have 24 hours. We have competitors circling the same technology space. If we're going to make a move, it has to be now." "Ramona, I like you, Elodie. I respect your work and I understand loyalty to a company you built. But Chromatech fired you. They demoted you to administrative support and told you to mind your place. At some point, loyalty becomes self-destruction. Don't destroy yourself for people who have already shown they don't value you." She was right. I knew she was right. But something in me couldn't let go. Couldn't walk away from 20 years without giving Chromatech one final chance to do the right thing. "Monday morning," I said. "I'll give you an answer Monday morning, I promise." She sighed. "Monday. But Elodie, I can't hold this offer open indefinitely. We're making business decisions too." After she hung up, I sat at my desk, my administrative support desk by the break room, and thought about choices. About what I was worth. About what kind of person I wanted to be. Then I did something impulsive. I walked to the executive elevator, rode up to Harrison Blackwood's floor, and knocked on his office door. Harrison Blackwood looked up from his computer, surprise flashing across his face. "Elodie, I wasn't expecting. Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I think we should talk, just the two of us. No attorneys, no mediators, just a conversation." He studied me for a moment, then gestured to the chairs across from his desk. "All right, talk." I sat down and took a breath. "I don't want to destroy Chromatech. I know that's what you think this is about, revenge, spite, punishing you for the demotion. But that's not it." "Then what is it about?" "Respect, recognition, being valued for what I've contributed instead of being treated as disposable the moment it's convenient. You restructured my role without conversation, without consideration of what I'd built here. You told me to mind my place, like I was a problem to be managed, instead of a partner who'd given this company 20 years of innovation. I made a business decision." "A bad one? You didn't do due diligence on the patent portfolio. You assumed Chromatech owned everything because it had always been that way. You prioritized fresh perspectives and younger energy over institutional knowledge and proven results. And now you're learning that those decisions have consequences." His expression hardened. "So this is punishment?" "No, this is me understanding my value and refusing to accept less than I'm worth. Something you should appreciate, given that your entire investment strategy is based on identifying undervalued assets and extracting maximum value from them." "What do you want, Elodie? Just tell me plainly what it will take to end this." I pulled out a folder, not the Quantum Dynamics offer, but my own proposal, refined and finalized. "I want to continue developing NeuralSync at Chromatech. I want the Chief Innovation Officer position with the authority and compensation that role deserves. I want equity that reflects my contribution to company value, not as a gift, but as recognition that my patents are the foundation of your billion-dollar valuation. And I want assurance that I won't be pushed out or demoted or restructured the next time new leadership decides I'm inconvenient." The board seat. The board seat, not to control the company, not to override every decision, just to protect the IP I create and ensure it's used ethically and strategically. He took the folder and read through my proposal. The silence stretched long enough that I could hear the clock on his wall ticking. Finally, he looked up. This is a lot. It's fair, it's fair. The investors will push back. They'll want to know why we're giving this much power to one person. Tell them the truth. That person invented the technology they're investing in. That without her patent, there is no neural sync, no breakthrough innovation, no billion-dollar valuation. Tell them Chromatech made a mistake and is correcting it. And if I can't sell them on that, then you'll lose the funding round and I'll take Quantum Dynamics' offer. By Monday, I'll be their chief innovation officer, and James and half your research team will follow me. Chromatech will spend the next 3 years trying to develop alternative technology while your competitors bring NeuralSync to market. Your company will be worth a fraction of what it is now, and your reputation will be that of the chairman who tanked a billion-dollar valuation because he was too proud to admit he was wrong. Harrison Blackwood set down the folder and leaned back in his chair. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Really looked at me, maybe for the first time since he'd taken over Chromatech. You've changed, he said finally. The woman I demoted last week wouldn't have done this. The woman you demoted last week believed loyalty and hard work were enough. She believed the company would value her contribution without her having to demand it. You taught her otherwise. So I created my own problem. You created clarity about what matters, what doesn't, and what I'm willing to accept. He stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. I came to Chromatech to build something, to take a decent research company and turn it into an industry leader. I looked at the structure Frederick had built, flat, relationship-based, sentimental, and saw inefficiency. Dead weight. People coasting on past achievements instead of driving toward future growth. You saw me as dead weight. I saw you as someone who'd gotten comfortable, who'd settled into a position and stopped pushing boundaries. I didn't understand that you were the boundaries, that everything we were trying to build was built on the foundation you'd created. He turned back to face me. I'm not going to apologize for pushing Chromatech to be more ambitious, more aggressive, more competitive. But I will acknowledge that I underestimated your value and mishandled your transition. That was a mistake. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was closer than I'd expected. The board meets Monday morning, he continued. I'll present your terms. I can't guarantee they'll approve everything. The board seat will be controversial, but I'll advocate for it. You've earned that much. And if they say no, then you take the Quantum Dynamics offer, and we both have to live with the consequences of this situation. I stood and extended my hand. Then we have an understanding. He shook it. His grip was firm, professional. We have a negotiation. Whether we have an understanding depends on what happens Monday. I left his office and returned to my desk, where I had a stack of supply requisitions waiting for approval. I processed them methodically, checked my email, and organized next week's conference room schedule. At 5 p.m., I packed up my things and went home. Not to my barely furnished apartment that I'd treated as a hotel for 20 years, but to the life I'd neglected while building Chromatech's success. I called my sister, Maria, who I hadn't spoken to in 3 months because I was always too busy, always in the middle of a critical project. We talked for an hour about nothing important, her kids, her husband's new job, the garden she was planning. Normal life things that I'd forgotten existed. You sound different, Maria said at one point. Lighter maybe, what's going on? I'm figuring some things out, about what matters. Does this have anything to do with your job? Mom mentioned you were having some trouble at work. When did you talk to Mom? Last week. She called because she hadn't heard from you and wanted to make sure you were okay. She worries, you know. Guilt hit me. I'd been so consumed with the Chromatech situation that I hadn't called my parents. Hadn't thought about how they might be concerned. I'm okay, I said. Actually, I'm better than okay. I'm starting to understand what Dad always said about knowing your worth. Maria laughed. Oh God, did something happen that made you actually listen to Dad's advice? This must be serious. After we hung up, I sat on my couch, the one I'd bought 4 years ago and barely sat on, and thought about my father. Antonio Marchetti, who'd worked in construction for 40 years, who negotiated every contract himself, who'd taught me that respecting yourself meant requiring others to respect you too. You can be humble and still know your value, he'd told me once, when I'd gotten my first job offer and was afraid to negotiate the salary. Humility means treating people with dignity. It doesn't mean letting them treat you without it. I'd forgotten that lesson somewhere along the way. Had confused humility with compliance, gratitude with subordination. The weekend passed quietly. I didn't check work email, didn't obsess over the Monday board meeting, just existed in my own life for the first time in years. Monday morning arrived clear and bright. I dressed carefully, not in administrative support casual, but in the professional attire I'd worn as director of advanced research. I was making a statement, whether Chromatech's board approved my terms or not. I arrived at the office at 8:30. The board meeting was scheduled for 9. Harrison Blackwood had told me he'd call after with the decision. At my desk, I pulled up the email from Ramona Castellano and typed a draft response. Ramona, thank you for your patience and for the generous offer from Quantum Dynamics. I'm prepared to accept the Chief Innovation Officer position and the terms we discussed. I didn't send it, not yet, but having it ready felt important, a reminder that I had choices. 9 a.m. passed, then 9:30, 10 o'clock. At 10:15, my desk phone rang. Not Harrison Blackwood's extension, Frederick Holloway. Elodie, I wanted you to hear this from me directly. I attended the board meeting this morning as Chairman Emeritus. Harrison presented your proposal. My heart was racing, and there was significant debate. Some board members felt your terms were excessive, that you were leveraging a difficult situation for personal gain, but I reminded them of something they seemed to have forgotten. Without you, there is no Chromatech. Not the Chromatech worth investing in anyway. You are the innovation that's being funded. You are the competitive advantage, and pretending otherwise is delusional. Frederick, the board approved your terms, all of them. Chief Innovation Officer position, 20% equity stake, board seat with protective authority over IP decisions. Effective immediately. Welcome back, Elodie, to the position you should have had all along. I couldn't speak. The relief, the vindication, the sheer weight of what had just happened, it was overwhelming. Harrison wants to meet with you this afternoon to finalize details, Frederick continued. But I wanted you to know that I'm proud of you, for standing up for yourself, for knowing your worth and demanding it be recognized. Your parents raised you right. After we hung up, I sat at my desk and let myself feel it. All of it. The anger at being demoted, the fear of being disposable, the determination to fight for what I deserved. And now, the satisfaction of knowing that fight had mattered. I deleted the draft email to Ramona Castellano and wrote a different one. Ramona, I'm grateful for Quantum Dynamics' offer and for your confidence in my abilities. However, I've decided to remain at Chromatech, where we've reached an agreement that properly values my contribution and provides the authority needed to continue developing NeuralSync technology. I hope we can still collaborate in the future, and I wish you continued success. At 2 p.m., I met with Harrison Blackwood in his office. He had the formal offer letter ready, along with equity documentation and board appointment paperwork. Congratulations, he said, sliding the documents across his desk. You played this perfectly. I'd be impressed if I wasn't still calculating what it's costing the company. What it's costing is less than what you would have lost if the funding round collapsed. True, the investors were satisfied with the board's explanation, though I had to spend an hour on the phone with Diane Rothschild explaining how our due diligence process missed the patent licensing issue. And what did you tell her? That we made assumptions based on historical practice rather than verifying current documentation, and that we've implemented new procedures to ensure it doesn't happen again. He met my eyes. Also that we've secured long-term rights to the foundational patent and brought the inventor into company leadership with appropriate authority and compensation. How did she take it? Better than expected. She appreciated the transparency. And she pointed out that having the actual inventor in a C-suite role is a selling point for future investors. So in a strange way, this mess actually strengthened our position. I signed the documents. Each signature felt like reclaiming something that had been taken from me. I want to be clear about something, Harrison said as I finished. This doesn't mean I think my approach to restructuring was wrong. Chromatech needed change, needed to become more competitive and aggressive, but I should have recognized that change doesn't mean discarding the people who built the foundation. I should have brought you into the conversation rather than making assumptions about your value. It still wasn't quite an apology, but it was acknowledgement, and maybe that was enough. I want to be clear about something too, I said. I'm not going to be easy to work with. I'm going to push for ethical development of NeuralSync, for prioritizing patient benefit over profit margins, for protecting the researchers who do the actual innovation. That board seat isn't ceremonial. I'm going to use it. I'd expect nothing less. That's why you're worth 20% equity. I stood to leave, then paused. What happened to my old office, the one they cleared out? Wesley Donovan's using it. Why? I want it back. CIO should have the corner office overlooking the research labs. Wesley can have the other executive space on that floor. Harrison Blackwood smiled slightly. I'll have facilities make the change this week. I returned to my desk by the break room and started packing up my things. The personal items I'd brought to make the space bearable, the files I'd been organizing, the sad little desk plant someone had given me out of pity. James appeared, looking confused. Elodie, what's happening? I'm moving back to the executive floor. Chief Innovation Officer, as of today. His eyes went wide. Wait, seriously, you're not leaving. Not leaving? I had a better offer from Quantum Dynamics, but Chromatech and I reached an understanding about my value here. So you're going to be my boss again? If you withdraw your resignation and come back to the research team, yes. He grinned. Let me make a phone call. By end of business, word had spread throughout the company. The woman who'd been demoted to administrative support had negotiated her way onto the board and into the C-suite. It was the kind of story people would tell for years. A legend about what happened when you underestimated the quiet ones who actually built everything. The following morning, Chromatech issued a press release. Chromatech Industries is pleased to announce the appointment of Dr. Elodie Marchetti as Chief Innovation Officer. Dr. Marchetti, inventor of the foundational NeuralSync technology and holder of 17 patents in neural interface systems, will lead Chromatech's research and development initiatives and join the company's board of directors. This appointment strengthens Chromatech's commitment to innovation and recognizes the critical importance of deep technical expertise in company leadership. My parents called that afternoon, having seen the announcement. My father's voice was thick with emotion. Elodie, sweetheart, you did it. You stood up for yourself. You taught me how, Dad. Remember, humility doesn't mean letting people treat you without dignity. I remember, I just never thought you were listening. My mother got on the line. We're so proud of you, not because of the title or the position, because you remembered who you are and what you're worth. That evening, I stood in my reclaimed office, my corner office overlooking the labs where NeuralSync had been developed, and watched my team working below. James was back, along with the others who'd been preparing to leave. They'd stayed because they believed in the work, and now they'd have leadership that protected that work. Harrison Blackwood appeared in my doorway, settling back in. Getting there, it's strange how familiar and different this feels at the same time. The board wants you to present at the next investor meeting. They think having the actual inventor explain the technology will reassure people about our IP position and development timeline. I can do that. He nodded and started to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, Elodie, I learned something from this situation, about assumptions and value and what it actually means to lead. So thank you for that, even if the lesson was expensive. After he left, I pulled up my calendar and started planning. Research priorities, team meetings, development timelines. The work I'd been doing for 20 years, now with the authority and recognition it had always deserved. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister. Saw the announcement? Mom won't stop crying happy tears. Dad's telling everyone at the grocery store that his daughter is on a corporate board. You're famous in our family group chat. Proud of you, Red. I smiled and texted back. Tell Dad to stop bragging to strangers, and thank you for keeping me grounded through all this. The truth was, none of this would have happened if I hadn't been pushed to my breaking point. If Harrison Blackwood hadn't demoted me, hadn't told me to mind my place, I might have continued accepting less than I was worth forever. Might have stayed grateful and compliant and undervalued. Sometimes it took losing everything to understand what you actually had, to recognize your own power and learn to use it. I wasn't the woman who'd been demoted 3 weeks ago. That woman had believed the system would reward loyalty and hard work automatically. The woman I'd become understood that you had to demand what you deserved, had to stand up for your value even when, especially when, doing so felt uncomfortable or risky. The venture funding round closed the following week. $240 million, valuing Chromatech at over $1 billion. The press coverage mentioned my appointment prominently, the inventor-turned-executive, the woman who'd built the technology and now led its development. It was a good story, a redemption arc that investors liked. What they didn't know was the full story. The demotion, the patent leverage, the negotiation that had brought the company to its knees before rebuilding it stronger. That was between me, Harrison Blackwood, and the board members who'd learned an expensive lesson about underestimating people. Stories like these remind us that our value doesn't diminish just because someone fails to recognize it. Elodie Marchetti spent 20 years building innovations that transformed her company, only to be told to mind her place when new leadership decided she was expendable. But what they didn't know, what they failed to understand, was that some people keep meticulous records. Some people hold patents, and some people refuse to accept being treated as disposable. If this story resonated with you, we'd be grateful if you'd subscribe to the Payback Office channel. We're working toward 8,000 subscribers, and every person who joins this community is a reminder that these experiences matter, that workplace injustice deserves to be called out, and that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. The subscribe button is right there. We'd love to have you with us. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply knowing your worth and refusing to accept anything less.